Brian said, my background as originally an ag CPA. I started with FarmWorks software in 1993, so really involved all aspects of FarmWorks. When Trimble discontinued FarmWorks in 2019, Brian and I connected and kind of got traction started. So today I'll be going through the budgeted cash flows. It was just released a couple weeks back. This was probably our last big feature that we were missing, that was kind of a key missing feature in here. So the way the budgeted cash flows works, I think probably first of all, to talk about what you need to have budgeted cash flows, you do need to be on the pro version of Traction to have it. Where you will see it is if you go to reports and go to accounting, you'll have this budget area there. Now, if you've done anything with market value, there's some similarities kind of the way budgeted cash flows work to market value. When you first start out, basically it's going to be a report you'll see on the screen. So I've got a previously created budget showing up in here, so I can see it in here. The first time you go here, this is going to be blank. You're not going to see any reports here until you actually create them. So I'm just going to work out today. We'll go from scratch and build a budget for 2026. So I'm just going to choose the new option and start building my budget. So I go to build the budget. I'm going to tell it the starting month and the starting year is defaulted to January 26. I'm going to do a 26 budget in here. You can pick out the entities on this. In this case, if you're doing a combined budgeted cash flow for multiple entities, you can select those entities. If you're going to do a separate one for each entity, you can go in and do each one separately. Probably the big thing to say, these budgeted cash flows, you can make as many of them as you want. There's really no limit to what you can create here. The program's going to create a description based off the year and the entities you've selected. You can change this any way you want. So like in my case, if this is going to be a budget I'm going to give to the banker, maybe I just include banker in that description. And that description will make a little more sense later on, where I show you kind of how to copy budgets and run different scenarios on it. The last thing I'm going to do, if you've been using Traction for the previous year, there's an option here to set to copy from previous year's actual balances. So in my case, what this is going to do is going to take all the revenue and the expenses from 2025, and it's going to use those as a starting basis for my 2026 budget. So if I hit save, there's my starting budget. So the values you're seeing right now, these are all last year's balances that is copied over here. Budget kind of laid out like a spreadsheet where I've got each of my accounts showing as rows here, columns for all the different months, and a total column. And to get into actually doing that budget, I'm just going to hit the edit button here. Now, one of the first things to say about budget kind of sits separate from any area of Traction. So anything you do in this area will have no impact on anything else in Traction. So if you go in and just start playing around with the budget and mess it up and you just want to start over, it's not that big a deal. You can do things in here. You can always go back and delete them, create new ones, whatever you want to do with that. So the budget is broken into different sections. I've got all my operations area, which is my revenue and expenses. I've got my investment area where I can do asset sales and purchases, financing, the debt payments and new debt, owner draws, and this cash position down at the bottom. So I'm just going to go through and kind of show you some examples on how this works. So if I open up the revenue, like right now, it's showing me in total from last year, we had 247,200 in corn sales. It's got the amount each month. So what I can do now is go in and change values here. So if I know I'm going to do 100,000 in January, 50,000 in February, nothing in March, maybe 250,000 in April, I can go in and update these values. And what you'll see as I update values in here, my total updates to reflect what I've typed in there. Now, the other side of this, you may have some things like maybe my hedging gains and losses that I know that typically I have maybe around $10,000 of hedging gains. I really don't know that amount by month. You can go in and just type in the total amount and that will spread that between the individual months. Once you do that total, if you know that maybe February is usually a bigger month, you can make changes to it also, and that'll update my totals for you. So kind of different ways to fill information in there. I'm not going to do all the revenue in here, just a few. So the expenses kind of the same way. If I go down to my expenses and I know fertilizer, I'm going to do a big prepay, maybe a bigger prepay this year. I'll do 300,000, maybe 100,000 in November. We'll say I'm not going to do anything in these other months. I can just go in and change those as I need to. Maybe an expense like fuel and oil, I don't want to do it by individual month, but I know maybe in total I'm going to spend about 30,000 a year. I can just put in that amount and spread it across there. So the key to this is to get a true budget. Our goal with this budget is to come down to our cash position, which is going to be the amount of cash that we should have at the end of each month. So to get that, we need to do more than just the revenue expenses. We need to budget everything where we're going to be getting money or paying money out. So like if I expected to sell some land in here, I could go into the asset sales, pick my land account and put the sales proceeds there. Same with asset purchases. So I'll go through a scenario here. Maybe I know in March I'm going to go out and buy a new tractor. That tractor is going to go in this farm equipment traction account. We'll say that tractor is going to cost me about 300,000. So I'll plug that amount in as an asset purchase. So that's coming out of my cash flow right now. It's acting like I'm going to buy that for the total amount spending that. But we know we're going to borrow some money for that tractor when we actually buy it. So I'll go to my new debt area and go to this tractor loan account and put in the amount that I've borrowed. Now, one big thing on this, you're probably asking, where did that tractor loan come from? All the accounts that are listed here are coming from my chart of accounts. So at this point, if I got to this new debt and I realized, oops, I haven't set that account up, it's no big deal. These budgets, you can always save and go back and edit them. So if I needed to add a new account, I could just do save and close, go back up to my chart of accounts and add it into my chart of accounts. And then once I've added it to my chart of accounts, I can go right back to that budget and just edit it again. So once I go to that budget area, I'll pick out and edit that budget and just change things around there. So everything's flexible. I mean, you can edit. If I edit an account, maybe I have to find a typo in an account, I can go back to the chart of accounts, edit it, fix it, and go back, and that'll fix it in the budget. So I've gone in now, I've said we're going to buy that tractor for 300,000. We're going to take out a loan for 250. Probably the last thing then I want to go in and say, hey, what about the payments on that loan? I can go to my debt reduction and that tractor loan. If my payments are going to be about maybe 3,000 a month, I'm just going to type 36,000 in for the year. I know those payments aren't going to start until April, so I can just delete those out. Little shortcut, if you don't like using the mouse, if you're used to using keyboards all the time, kind of like any spreadsheet, I can tab through here. I'm doing a tab, a shift tab to go backwards. That takes me through the different cells in here where I can update information. Owner draws, I can go in and say whatever the wages are going to be. If I take an owner's not as wages, but actually draws on the business, I can go and say how much those draws are going to be. Just type in a total and spread those amounts across the different months. So the key to this budget is this bottom cash position. So this bottom cash position is basically saying at the end of each month, this is the amount of cash that I should be left with if everything in my budget is correct. So what it's going to do is each month, it's going to take the ending cash position from the month before. So if I look at February, January 77.42, it's going to adjust it for the change. That change is just the total of all the items up there, and it's going to come up with the ending cash position. Now, the key for ending cash position is most people look at this as being all my cash accounts, my checking account, my savings account, any cash accounts that I've got, less any credit cards and less any operating loans that are set up to work as a checking account. So if I've got, say, an operating loan out there, my negatives are reflecting the amount that I should have. So I'll just go through and bump up my expenses a little bit to show kind of an example. Let's bump our fertilizer and lime up to 500,000. So what these negative balances down at the bottom tell me, like in this case, I'm looking at November and December, I'm going to be 20,000, 30,000 in the hole, 40,000 in March. This really, if I'm budgeting an operating loan, is what I'm looking at, because this is telling me how much, if everything's right in the budget, how much I should be borrowed on my operating loan. So these are the things I'm looking to make sure that if that's a lot higher than what my operating loan is, I need to either look at, make sure my budget's right, can I make adjustments, or can I get my operating loan increased? The key to this, you'll notice that beginning cash position for January, Traction is going to calculate that value for you. So this 80, roughly negative 83,000, if I look back at my cash accounts from December, this would be the total of everything added up where Traction's calculated it. Now, if you're in a hurry to get a budget done, you know your Traction values are wrong, you just want to do the budget, you can go in and change this value and override it, and that'll update everything based off what you've changed it. If you go in there and muck around and you change it wrong and you want to reset it, it's not a big deal. If you delete it and click away, we'll recalculate it for you. So it gives you some flexibility there if you're hurried to get the budget done. Couple other things we've got in here. Once you've got the budget all done, you're probably going to have some accounts that you're not budgeting in here, especially as you get down into your asset sales and asset purchases. So once everything's done in there, we give you this option where you can kind of hide those accounts. So if I want to get this down so I'm just seeing the accounts that I've budgeted, I can switch this all accounts to non-zero accounts. And that really cuts down the amount that I have to enter in there. So you can flip back and forth between that anytime. Couple other things, if you start that budget, you realize you made a mistake, maybe you picked the wrong year, the wrong months, anything like that, it's no big deal. This little gear button, that takes me back where I started, where I could change the entities, change the starting month, or change the description on it. So it's all pretty flexible where you can go in and update things. From the reporting side, once I save and close, now I'm going to see the actual report on the screen. Report's got kind of the same options on here where I can see it just with my non-zero accounts. That's probably most of the time the report you want. If you wanted to show all accounts here, you can switch back and forth. Report is a pretty standard budget layout on it. Any type of budgeted cash flows you deal with will look like this. We'll give you the ability then you can print it out, save it as a PDF through the print. We've also got an export option on it. So if you've got something, maybe your banker wants it in an Excel format so that he can go in and do his magic with it, you can export it as a CSV. That'll go into their spreadsheet program. Or if you want to do some detailed analysis on your own, we've got that CSV export. There's also the ability to show budgeted versus actual. So for that, I'm going to switch back to, I've got a 2025 budget that I've created here. So once you've created a budget for a year and you start doing things in that year, you can switch it to budgeted versus actual and update the report. And this now is showing me all the bold amounts are the actual amounts, the things that have actually happened on my books, and kind of the lighter ones on top, those are my budgeted amounts. So I can start seeing where I stand compared to budget. With this, one of the features we've added in here that not many budgets do, FarmWorks never did it, QuickBooks doesn't do it, this cash position down at the bottom, you'll notice we're going to see what my budgeted cash position was as well as what my actual was. So this blue is going to be my actual, and I can kind of see how close or how far off I was to budget. So the key to this is this gives me a way also to see the future. So when I look at this, for my case, I'm into November, so the only one left is December. But probably if I've kept my budget up and I've been watching it month to month, what I really want to know is what's my future cash position going to be based off today's actual. And that's what we're kind of showing down here. When I hover over this, this is giving me kind of a tip to show me that this value, the 328, that was how much I originally budgeted for that cash position. The 46,498 takes into account the current actual position as of today in November with the budgeted changes to come up with what I've expected. So most other, like if you're doing this in FarmWorks, the only way you'd be able to get that would be go back and update all your budget and change things. Even QuickBooks kind of works that way. So if you're really watching your budget month to month, this gives you a way to kind of roll that budget forward to see what's going on there. This edit screen does have the same thing. As I look here, I can start seeing budget versus actual here. And again, you can always toggle back and forth between it. Sometimes it's just too many numbers, can flip back to budgets and just see the budgeted values there. So probably the last thing I want to do in the budget is kind of go through how you can run different scenarios on it. Maybe this budget, I've done this budget for the banker. This is kind of what I typically think would happen. But now I'd like to say, what happens if crop prices are higher and I get more revenue on this? So what I can do, I'm just going to make a new budget here. Same thing for 2026, same two entities. And my description, I'm going to call this best case. I'm not going to copy this from actual. I'm just going to create a blank budget and say save. So I've just got a blank budget here. I haven't put anything in yet. And I'm going to go to this edit mode. We've given you the ability up here to fill that budget. What I'm going to do is say, let's fill that budget, not with previous year's actual, but that first budget that I created with the banker. So when I do that and say save, now I've got that exact balance, the exact budget that we just created. And now I can go in and start changing things. So if I know that what I want to do is budget, and I'll just do corn, that maybe we're going to get 200,000, 200,000, whatever it is, I can go through and then run different scenarios. What that's going to allow me to see is, okay, so if I get that much more in crop sales, this is what my cash positions should be. So scenario that I could make one for best case, one for worst case, where crop prices are low, input prices are higher, whatever. And that's just going to show up in the list of budgets that I've got. So you'll see in this case, I've already got two different scenarios for that budget. So it's all designed that you can make as many different budgets as you need in this area. So it's really flexible in that aspect. And again, if I get down the road later on and I decide, okay, that best case, nothing happened. It's not that important to me. It's no big deal. I can just edit these budgets, delete them, and they're all gone at that point. So that deleted that budget. Now I'm right back to the other two that are left. So I'll open it up. Are there any questions?
Yeah, feel free to unmute yourself and you can ask questions that way, or we do have the chat running at the bottom there. So if you want to just type a question in, I'm happy to read it off for Scott and get them answered that way too.
Quiet group this morning.
Yeah, I'm not seeing any questions, Scott, in the chat.
Must put them all to sleep.
Looks good, guys.
Thanks,
Thanks,
Don.
Don. Anybody else? Any questions or?
I really like the where you can put it with the zero counts out of there. Just makes it a whole lot easier to look down through it.
Yeah, I
It
think the
is.
key is to remember to turn it back on if you had a different expense or revenue or asset going on there. Just turn it back on so you see it on the budget. Got a question for you, Scott.
Yeah, I see it there. As far as the payments, it's only going to do it when you fill it in. So, and again, this is geared really when I'm doing 2026 and I budget last year on it. So if I wanted to update it, I would actually have to then fill it again later. So if I fill it with 2025 data and put more expenses in for 2025, it's not going to update that budget. And thanks for the feedback, Mark and Chris. Yeah, this was one that from my side, when we started Traction, I used QuickBooks Online for the budgets to start with, and then I did some spreadsheets and different things. And so some of the pain points, QuickBooks Online, that little filter, the non-zeros is one that I don't think many people do that. It's kind of nice little things to make it easier to do stuff. So
Yeah, hi, McKenna here. I don't have any questions, but we're really excited to have this at our farm. We too have really struggled trying to figure out a different system to do something like this, and we really liked it from FarmWorks. So we're excited, and that's kind of all I got.
awesome.
Yeah, appreciate that. I know Scott mentioned this already at the beginning, but we had a lot of people kind of pop in late, Scott. Just to, I guess, just to update everyone. So you do have to have the Traction Pro level for this budgeted cash flow feature, the stuff that Scott just went through. So I know we have people with a mix of just Traction Basic, Traction Plus. But I know we got quite a few pro people in this webinar, but you do have to have that pro level to get this particular feature that he's showing you. Okay. Last chance for questions.
Hey Scott,
Yes.
can you take like previous year actuals and just transfer it into making like the next year's budget?
That is exactly. When you do new, there's this option to copy from previous year's actual, or if you forget that fill that I did, if I just take a budget and if I select a budget and edit, there's that fill option to fill with previous year's actual. So that'll always take your previous year, copy it in. So it's only revenue and expenses, and I think draws may be the other thing we do. And it will, if there's anything in that budget, it's going to overwrite it with whatever you fill into it.
So what you're saying then is basically if you have you got to come back in and put your debts back into the cash flow.
Yeah, the loan payments and that today, those don't fill in. It's only revenue and expenses. And I think drawing is the other one that we fill into it.
Okay.
Could you please explain again on the previous year's balance what items are included for that cash position?
Yes, it will be the revenue, all the revenue accounts, the expense accounts, and I'm fairly certain the owner draws are the other things that will be copied over. So anything dealing with asset purchases and sales and debt, those aren't copied over. That is something we'll look at for adding in the future, but today those don't come over.
So if I'm understanding this right, it will not include the balance of the previous draw from a operating loan.
The operating loans, as long as your operating loan is set to function as a checking account, that operating loan really is down here in your ending cash position. So this is kind of saying what it's assuming on that operating loan is that any months I've got excess cash, I'm paying that loan down. And then when I don't have excess cash, kind of these negative balances down below represent my operating loan. So it's looking at that for the operating loan based off what's actually happening. Does that kind of make sense?
Somewhat. I'm used to always taking the balance from the operating loan from the previous year to help with the cash position as well as the checking accounts.
That's exactly. And that's why you're seeing in my case, I've got a negative balance here. So it does for this opening balance, I think I'm with you now. So this opening negative 83,000, that would be the total of my cash accounts minus my operating loan from the end of last year. So that's why that's negative. So that's exactly right that factors in right there.
Okay, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Yeah, we had another question on the chat here about, I think it's asking more about, do you have any more webinars available? I think this person may not have traction quite yet. We do have some webinar recordings, and I will share that with you. So we have a place where you can kind of watch old ones, and there's also quite a few knowledge-based videos you can watch. And I believe some of those do touch the reports side of it. Scott, maybe you just want to just touch really quickly the report side of it. The reports are pretty flexible in Traction. I know you can, at least we try to export them as a CSV file, and anytime you see a print button, you can print as a PDF as well, not necessarily to a printer. But yeah, you can kind of filter that by entities and dates, and what he's showing down there is the print button to print as a PDF, or there's the export button down there as well to get it to like a spreadsheet if you want to get that information out of Traction. We try our best, I know, to get the information out of it so you can process some of that information outside of Traction if you need to.
I think one non kind of report thing just to mention, anybody that does 1099s and tractions, just so you know, we're working on, hopefully you've seen when you log in, you should have got some messaging. So we're working on updates for the communication with tax 1099. So that will be coming by the end of November. If you need to get something done before the end of November, we're not there yet, but we'll have some pre-releases for people that want access to it. Just let Success know, and we can give you early access to that. So that is in process. Definitely by the 1st of December, should be sooner than that, we'll have the 1099s updated.
Okay. You want to bring up the last slide there, Scott, and we'll call it a day. Yeah, so just to kind of close things out today, so we'll have other webinars in the future. This is just a short list of them that you're seeing on the screen here. But the next one is November 19th. We do post these webinars on our website. So if you go to tractionag.com, and if you happen to scroll down at the bottom of the website, down the footer area, there is like an events button you can click on, and that has all the trade shows that we'll be at, as well as any kind of webinar that we're hosting. So we'll have one for the FS integration. So any of you that deal with FS in Illinois and do business with the FS company, we'll be talking about how to seamlessly bring in bills into Traction with that webinar. And then a little bit later this month, we'll be talking about best practices for year-end tax planning. So, a lot of you are getting ready to talk to your accountant and get things ready for year-end. We'll go through some things and reports and stuff that would be handy to have if you're having those type of meetings with your accountant. I know Scott mentioned tax 1099 and all that. I believe we'll probably have some sort of webinar around that as well. So keep your eye open. And if you don't happen to be on our website, I do my best, try to get some emails out to notify people about these webinars. Okay. Yeah, I got a message here from Kent. Yep, we'll definitely keep in touch there. Happy to answer any question you've got there on traction. So, okay, Scott, anything else from you before we
I don't think so.
leave? Okay, well, thank you everyone for attending, and hopefully we'll catch you at a future webinar. Have a good day.